New Year, new me. The sense of how the new you comes to be. New Year's resolutions, if and how they work, discussing habits, brain efficiency, and how we can use that for the new year. Old year was odd, and yet in some aspects it also has been a pretty good year. Many of us, for the first time in our lives since early childhood, had the opportunity to really decide what they wanted to do with their lives again. Not necessarily because of too much free time, due to things like job loss, but I'm speaking of deciding how to structure your day, aka the single unit of time measured in 24 hours, with hours made up of 60 seconds and minutes again made up of 60 seconds. Made up of 60 minutes, the hours of course. That didn't necessarily mean you could structure all of your day according to your likings, but much more. You could more so than before. Standing up 10 minutes before school, work, lectures, meetings, Christmas dinner was indeed possible, with the chance nobody noticed. Getting ready, commuting two times a day wasn't necessary anymore, at least for those who could work from home. And with the external pressure of appearing in certain locations at certain times falling off, everybody responded differently. Some may have worked better with these external constraints, others did better at home. Doesn't matter which type you were, the only thing for sure is this: most of us had to cope with these new constraints and adapt. And this is where we meet the resolutions. See, the brain actually is lazy. Actually, it's not really lazy, but describing something with human characteristics makes things more relatable. In reality, the brain is still the most capable information processing unit known to us in the entire universe, and also the most complex thing we know, which doesn't mean it really is and always will be, but to the extent of our knowledge, and for now the assumption holds true. Therefore, our brain is not lazy, but highly efficient and effective, with effective being the ultimate goal, including efficiency. In short, being efficient is running one process optimized. Being effective is optimizing a whole range of processes, or the whole thing, by also selecting and not, therefore leaving out single processes, even efficient ones. This means the brain programs itself constantly and is searching for patterns to automate itself by analyzing everything you do and think all the time. And if you do certain things more often, the brain adapts, writes code to run the things you do all the time better, and with less brain power. How? By strengthening the parts of our brain's gigantic network of neurons and their connection, used more frequently. And their connections. Same in reverse, meaning if you use certain paths in your neural network less often, these are dismantled. Just think of it as a zero-sum game right now. Think of your brain as a gigantic road network. The points of interest are the brain cells, the neurons, and the connections are called axons or dendrites, with axons being the connections from one neuron to the next, and with dendrites the ones coming from other neurons to the neuron you are looking at. Now, depending on how much traffic there is in between these two neurons, the connections can be paths, roads, highways. Now, imagine a smart government is currently adapting the road system to the current needs, not the needs politicians think suit their campaigns best, but a smart government that constantly measures and analyzes all the traffic in between the points of interest, and basing their decisions on which roads to expand and which ones to make smaller again on the actual data. Is the traffic. This is everything you think, everything you can do. Everything you do can be found in your brain as information, driving on these paths, roads and highways. Everything you think, the same. Now, the thing is this: if you ever wanted to get from a certain point to another, the time it takes you to make it highly depends on the quality and quantity of the transportation network in between. Say you wanted to go from the word Trump to president, you ask Google how long it takes. Google may say, no way. And you might think that's the end of the story. But you always can find a way. At least that's what Trump probably thought some time ago. Maybe it isn't even a path and it might take forever. Still you could, and This is learning, either upping the quality or the quantity of the connections in your brain. Now, there is also unlearning, disconnecting previously connected things. Let's say you ate the fridge. Every time you went to the kitchen, probably a connection you want to remove, or the least to be less strong. Since in 2021 you for one will still be working from home, the kitchen will still be there and the fridge also. Then you would have to find ways to somehow get rid of that physical connection in your brain. In reality, a connection between 2 points of interest is probably rarely a single connection that can be added, strengthened, or removed, but much more a combination of single connections. Chances are, in real transportation, there also isn't a direct highway to everywhere you want to go. You have to change in between, because as already discussed, it just doesn't make sense. You connect every point of interest with the best available connection, because it's more effective. Remember the changes on your journey where you switch to another path, road or highway, because as in reality you have to use a combination of connections to make it to your final destination. This is where you can cut in and try to not eat the whole fridge. Every change in between represents a change to actually choose another destination entirely. If the thought food always leads to kitchen, which leads to kitchen, open fridge and eat the whole fridge, then the best way to break up that connection is not by just not thinking food, but by cutting in somewhere along the chain, switching destinations instead of avoiding to travel, and trying to replace the final destination, not the first thought. Because chances are you cannot just not think food, cannot just not go to the kitchen, or, well, you actually could do the latter, found another point to cut in. Therefore, replacing works better than avoiding, because it's much less effort, and since your brain is highly effective, everything that's in use will be there for use, also in 2021, meaning you can make the most ambitious goals ever. The goals themselves won't do much, because all they do is don't do much, don't change much, because they are just thoughts. Of course, they also exist in your brain, because where else would they? But the few minutes it takes to produce them won't result in any significant structural change in the brain's network. Therefore, even if it is 2021, and even if you made the goal not to go to the kitchen every time you think about food and then eat the whole fridge, chances are you still will eat the whole fridge. Unless you changed your brain on a physical and structural level in between, or your hallway. Maybe by replacing the final destination with make a cup of coffee. The process chain is already highly built, and you just cannot change it by making a new resolution. As you might have guessed already, highly built roads, also highways, are habits. They are the actual code the brain constantly writes, the past encoded in the neuronal network. And every time you do something, your brain changes. This means your brain changes anyway all the time. But if you only use the existent transportation system all the time, your brain's rate of change is probably on the lower side. In summary, if you want to change yourself, there is no way around changing the structure of your brain. Of course, you can try to run entirely new trails in the first few days of the new year, but in summary, that's you putting in effort for a few days. Chances are, as soon as you don't use the new trails, your brain will be like, forget them, nobody uses them anyway, resulting in you eating the fridge again, which is not the thing you want to do. Switch in between. Instead of creating entirely new paths, you can use the already existing network and just take different changes. Meaning, cut the chains not by cutting the chains, but by changing the final destination. Ever wondered why people who quit smoking often end up fat? Because they replaced smoking with eating. You cannot just not do the thing you wanted to do when you had the urge to smoke, when you decided to travel, because since the urge emerged, you already are on the journey to your destination. But what you still can do is switch the destination and eat the food, but not the fridge.